Could you imagine having literally hundreds of people who are smarter than you or better connected than you, always having you front of mind so that when an opportunity comes up to make a connection, they will? I mean, that's what goodwill or coming to them with the giving hand will do for you. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Empire Podcast Show. My name is Bedros Keuilian, this is Craig Ballantyne, and today we're talking about social bank account. Craigie, what is a social bank account?
You know, that's a great question. Did you know that?
That is a great question.
And so social bank account looks like this. Let's use the word goodwill. Goodwill. So when you go with the giving hand, when you are just so generous that people, well, they owe you, but we don't want to think about it that way,
Sure.
But they do. So here's a couple of examples. First of all, the iPhone. The iPhone charges premium prices because even 10 years on now, they are still over-delivering. They are just delivering us something that we just want to brag about when we have it. And so that's one example. Now, another one is that in your world, people are getting Fit Body Bootcamp tattoos because of the social bank account you've developed with them.
Yeah, so social bank account really, if you look at it this way, for lack of a better term, is what Robert Cialdini calls in his book, one of the 6 weapons of influence. It is reciprocity, when people owe you. But if you're going out there to be generous to people just so people can owe you something, that's really counterproductive. It's going to work against you. The best way to build up social bank account truly is by going out there, being generous, helping others, being of service, and coming with the giving hand. And as a byproduct, by expecting nothing in return is when you get the most back. And so when we started seeing people getting Fit Body Bootcamp tattoos, and in fact, one guy at the TT Summit showed us how he got a TT Summit tattoo right on his leg. That is a great example of any company, industry, organization over-delivering and exceeding expectations so much where people begin to identify with that brand.
That's a really, really great point, is that they personalize the brand. It's all, instead of it's not a company, it's something that, you know, like Nike had tattoos, obviously Fit Body and turbulence training as well. That's so powerful. So who else is doing that level of social bank account deposit?
You know, one guy that comes to mind who's doing that, and he does it so consistently year after year, is Gary Vaynerchuk.
Okay.
And we have to give Gary Vaynerchuk a ton of kudos where this is concerned, because he doesn't sell anybody anything. He literally doesn't sell anybody anything, but he just says, I'm going to put out a lot of content. I'm going to change the way you think about being an entrepreneur. I'm going to give you all this information for free. And all I ask is when every other year I come out with a book, if it makes sense to you, go buy my book. And he has literally built a business on writing books and making these books a bestseller by just coming consistently day after day, hour after hour, year after year with building his social bank account and coming with the giving hand to the world. And he is a prime example of that where it's concerned. Now, I do have another example that I want to share with you. One of our Fit Body Bootcamp owners, Bryce Henson, who you also know very well. Bryce owns several Fit Body Bootcamp locations with his brother and sister. And he's one of those guys that anytime he has a conversation with you, what else can I do for you? What introduction can I make for you? And, you know, whatever little introduction that he has that he can make for you, he'll do. And he doesn't do that expecting anything. He simply does that because he's generous from the heart. But he's also connected the dots that when I give with that expectation, I get more back.
Yeah, so were you ever at a point where in your career where you didn't know about this, or you didn't think to give, or you thought that, you know, why would I bother giving? And then, you know, what was the turning point where all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is actually the magic formula for success, putting more deposits in my social bank account?
Yeah, dude, I'll be very honest with you. In fact, for me, the turning point was when I realized I was putting people off. I really was putting people off. And it's because we come from a place of desperation. As humans, we're all pretty selfish.
And especially when you're broke.
When you're broke, you're even more desperate, right? And so when you're desperate, you always think about, what can Craig do for me? What can that guy do for me? And when we're thinking about what others can do for us, they're really thinking, well, what's in it for me? Because you're human, you're selfish too. And so when I realized I was putting people off, I decided I'm going to just ask this question after every dialogue I have with others, which is, what else can I do for you, right? And so just earlier, before we came down here, we were actually doing a podcast upstairs. And every time I do a podcast with anyone, before I finish the podcast off and thank them, I say, hey, by the way, is there anything I can do for you? Is there any connection I can make for you? And typically they say, wow, no one's ever asked me that. Yes, I've been trying to get so-and-so on my podcast. Do you know him or her? Can you make that introduction? Why would I want to do that? One, it's just the right thing to do. If I'm connected and I grew up in this business on the shoulders of giants, I'm now connected. I need to be the giant that others can stand on my shoulders, right? That's what you and I have this responsibility to do. And so I asked the guy and he goes, wow, no one's ever asked me that. Sure, absolutely, there is something you can do. And I made one simple introduction. It didn't take but 2 minutes of my time via email, but that was a person that he was trying to get for months and he was unable to. So I'm guessing he's going to be able to get that person on a show. How does this help me? In the long run, as my book comes out, July of 2018, Man Up, I have no doubt that I can go back to him and say, Robert, what do I need to do to get on your podcast so I can talk about my book and we can sell my books? And I can do that with full confidence, knowing that I've over-delivered, exceeded expectations, and now I can ask for something back.
Perfect. So when you're just starting out, when you're struggling, you do have that tendency to think, I gotta go and get something from other people. But it's just like, when they say that dogs can smell fear, other people can smell and feel that desperation. So you have to repel that instinct, and you have to go with that giving hand. You have to be generous. You have to build the goodwill. And I remember you and I have both been interviewed by this guy, Brad Costanza. And at the end of his podcast, he always asks, hey, what can our listeners do for you? And I had never heard that before. And I've done over 135 podcasts in the last year. And this guy asks you, hey, what can we do for you? Not just in like, hey, can we promote your book, but hey, where do you really need help? And I thought that was really great. And we actually got listeners sending me emails on the thing that I needed help with. Yeah, it was really great.
That's huge. What's funny is we talk about this where you said dogs can smell fear. And when you look at the human brain, and I'm no doctor here, but I can tell you this because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, is that the human brain consists of 3 parts, right? The reptilian brain, and then you got the midbrain, and then you've got the neocortex, which is our new brain, right? Well, our new brain helps with logic, but it's that reptilian brain that it still has the antennas up that's always tracking and looking for the bullshit detector. That's our bullshit detector. And you could always tell, can't you, when someone is coming to you genuinely with a giving hand, or they're coming to you and there's a catch, there's a hook. And so that reptilian brain is always scanning and looking for the person who's coming with an agenda. And so you might as well come with generosity well ahead of the time before ever needing to ask for anything. And that's kind of been my rule of thumb. A year before, I'll do so much value in giving for you so that if down the line I need something, I can rely on you. And if I don't, you're just going to think of me because there's so much reciprocity built that when you come across someone who needs to connect with me, you'll go, you know what, I got to connect this guy with Bedros, simply because Bedros has done for me without ever asking for anything back. And that's the goodwill I want to build.
Absolutely. And there's one more example of that, and the guy's name is Joe Polish, and we're in his mastermind group, and that guy is just generous. He's always connecting people, and it's so easy to reference him in this situation. I always say he's the most connected guy I know, and even before I gave him a penny, he was connecting me with other people because we were friends, and so it's just really the right thing to do. So bottom line, we're going to go out there and we're going to be generous. We're going to build up our goodwill, our social bank account. We are going to connect people, and we're always going to figure out what we can do for other people, especially when it's so easy, right?
Sure. I mean, think about this. Could you imagine having literally hundreds of people who are smarter than you or better connected than you, always having you front of mind so that when an opportunity comes up to make a connection, they will? I mean, that's what goodwill or coming to them with a giving hand will do for you, right?
Absolutely. And so when you build up your social bank account, you're going to build up your real bank account too. And you know what? People are going to love you. You're going to have a huge impact on the world. And you're going to be one of the best go-giving entrepreneurs with your own empire. And that's what counts, right?
Amen. Thanks for listening to the Empire Podcast Show. Remember to subscribe on iTunes, share it with your friends, and give us a rating. We'd really appreciate that. And make sure to go to empirepodcastshow.com to watch the videos as they come out.